Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, yes, the Sylphie Yandere arc. It has finally come. It took a while. But we're finally here. Sylphie is finally snapped, and her first target is Nanahoshi. Rudeus has been looking at Nanahoshi too long, and she's like, first it was Roxy, and now it's this girl. Time to get rid of her. Bam! Just kill her right there. Honestly, this part in the novel series was quite a shocker. I really wasn't sure, like, what we're doing here. Like, I know what we're doing here, but at the same time, I'm like, surely not we're going this direction, but we'll see. I think this is a really good stopping point for the anime onlys. What a cliffhanger to leave on. What a cliffhanger to leave on. What a cliffhanger to leave on, just to have that speculation in people's mind, like, what just happened? Sylphie's over here like, my mana, what is it doing? What exactly is happening here? And then boom. Anyways, my gosh, yes, episode 8. Yes, episode 8 of season 3 of Mushoku Tensei. What a really, really good episode. And yes, while we did cover 3 whole very, very meaty chapters, I think overall they did a good job of presenting the floating fortress. This place is, honestly, when I read this, I wasn't expecting this big. So to see it, actually actualized in an animated format, I'm like, wow, this thing of scale is massive. And it makes sense. I mean, we're not talking about a floating castle here. We're talking about a floating fortress. This thing is big place. And they're like taking a while to actually travel through this place just to go to see Pegasus. And then we have like underneath, you have like all these tunnels and whatnot, and this massive mural underneath it. This place is big. And honestly, they did a good job of kind of creating that spectacle here. But yes, well, I'm a big fan of this character, Pegasus Dola. I am not too much of a fan of the beginning of this little segment here with him, being a little mean to Roxy. Not allowing Roxy to get on there, even though she was all excited. She brought her briefcase and everything. She was ready to go. I'm used to this. Yeah, I'm used to this. Go on. No, you guys go on ahead. I'm used to this. Poor Roxy. That's the only reason I have not liked this guy. Like, everything else, I think he's amazing, but, like, the fact that he's so, let's face it, racist, which makes sense because the whole war thing, which he gets into a little bit with this entire segment here, but other than that, he's a pretty amazing character, and I think they did a good job of kind of presenting this part. We do have a lot to go through with this particular impression/skip content video, so we should probably just get into it, but hopefully I can condense it enough and give you guys the major plot points so that you guys don't miss out on anything that was unfortunately skipped with the anime adaptation. But with that said, we should just get into it. Opening up the episode with them arriving at these particular ruins, which were a place, sort of a stronghold for the humans they were trying to build up and hold behind during the Laplace War. And this is about a half day north of Shirai itself. It's funny because they kind of start this whole thing out with like that concern about the fact there's so many of them going there. And Ariel mentions the fact that Lord Pegasus spends his days in seclusion now. But after the Laplace's war, he lived in the Asura Kingdom for some time. The people there think of him as an equal to their own king. It's said that he once brought 100 servants with him and visit the palace. Someone like that would hardly bat an eyelash to a tiny group of 9 people. I mean, it's a good point. It is funny that this entire time, Maurice is extremely excited to actually meet Pegasus. It mentioned that when she first mentioned, he was so excited that he was like a kid on his birthday. This was the Armored Dragon King. He knew about him from books not long after he reincarnated into this world. Pegasus was a hero from the Laplace War 400 years ago. He can control 12 familiars, had restored an ancient floating fortress to its former glory, and even fought Laplace himself with his comrades. After Laplace was sealed, people sang his praises and named a new calendar Armored Dragon. He was named the Armored Dragon King, but he had no territory that he ruled. He eventually left the Asura Palace and began traveling the world on his floating fortress Chaosbreaker. They would be meeting a man of legends, and he couldn't shake that anticipation. Even with his busy schedule and Lucy, Rudeus couldn't shake his curiosity, and so he would decide to go along with Nanahoshi. While he was conflicted, Sylphie didn't seem as much. But instead asked if Ariel can come along. Nanahoshi questioned it with a scrunched up expression. Ariel had tried soliciting Nanahoshi's favor a number of times. It made sense with the trade pipelines that she had created. With Nanahoshi wanting little to do with this world, it left her a little annoyed. Ariel had made many connections and spent years preparing for the purpose of taking the Asuran crown, but her chances were about as good as a coin toss, not a safe bet in Rudeus' mind. With Ariel graduating next year, he had no idea what she had planned to do after that. Maybe continue to accumulate power, or head to Asura to seize the throne. Rudeus would help her if she chose the latter, but he felt a little less enthusiastic now that he was married and had a child. He wanted to keep his involvement at a level that wouldn't negatively impact his family if possible. That aside, Sylphie's proposal was probably to help Ariel make connections. Of course, having the backing of a hero would make her struggle easier. In the end, Nanahoshi agreed, shrugging her shoulders. She wanted to repay Sylphie in that end. Apparently, Sylphie had taken care of Nanahoshi while Rudeus was gone, sharing food, providing her with clothing, casting intoxication when she was sick. While Nanahoshi came over rarely, since Lucy's birthday, Sylphie said that she used the bath a lot before then. And that was how Ariel and Luke ended up joining them. Sylphie had told Rudeus that Ariel was unusually enthusiastic about the meet. And that makes sense, right? Yeah, if I was in Ariel's shoes, this would be a huge win. If she could possibly get this guy's favor, this is huge. I can see this girl skipping to these ruins. Let's go. We gotta do this. We gotta get this done. This is exactly what I need. If I can get this guy at my side when I go back there to Asura, those people should be bowing before me. But now, carrying on, Rudeus remembers that he has met one of the subordinates of Pedagus before. A man calling himself Aramonfi the Bright. He thought Rudeus was the mastermind behind the displacement incident. Ghislaine had talked him down, and he didn't get a sense that he was a bad person. Still, considering he tried to kill him out of nowhere, there was still something undeniably dangerous about him. Who knew if his master was any better? While nervous, Rudeus corrected himself. It seemed that Pedagus had a premonition about what was going to happen, and tried to stop the displacement incident before it occurred. If so, he deserved all the praise in the world. It's a positive way of thinking about it. I nearly got killed back there by one of his subordinates, but he technically was trying to stop something that technically killed a lot of people and completely uprooted Rudeus' life. But anyways, that's when they arrive at the monument, which, yes, Rudeus very quickly realizes is one of many monuments that he's seen around the world, which are the monuments of the seven great powers. It's here where Nanahoshi blows the whistle. Now, technically, right off the bat in the anime, Aramonfi shows up, but in the novel, they have a little bit of a wait here. They have to wait for a little bit for Aramonfi, I guess, to get dressed or something. Something. He's up there for a while. You got to get there first. During the time they're sitting around, though, Ellenlace kind of gives Cliff a warning. Says, just a forewarning, someone might say something demeaning to you while you're here, but you mustn't lose your cool and mouth off, all right? Cliff responds, I know that. I'm not a child. Ellenlace nestled against him, whispering in his ear before his expression turned relaxed. Zenoba, on the other hand, is overcome with excitement. He wanted to show Pedagus their figurines, so he brought a whole bunch of them. He had planned to advertise the business to Pedagus, just as Rudeus had done to Bodigadi. Apparently, Julie stayed behind in Zenoba's room, while Ginger was ordered to guard Rudeus' family. While not in danger, it was nice they had assistance. Now, technically, a note here, and this is something that you don't quite get a sense from in the anime, they spend a lot of time there. Over the course of this segment the anime is covering, they've stayed the night several nights. They're having different meals and whatnot, and staying in the room and whatnot, and Rudeus is doing his studies and everything. They're going through multiple lessons of, summoning magic. But yeah, that's when Aramonfi shows up and says that everything's all cool, everybody can come except for the Migard. The Roxy. Again, I like Pedagus and everything, but yeah, this dislike for specifically demons, or mainly Roxy. All the rest of the demons I can maybe understand. I mean, he had a whole war that he was involved with. Technically, the Migards were involved with it, but Roxy, she's innocent. It upsets me. Rudeus thought to himself, during the Laplace's war, Pedagus had fought the demons. He must still have a grudge. War tended to leave its mark on people's hearts. Rudeus had nearly forgotten such discrimination existed, because most people weren't particularly prejudiced against demons in this area, but the same couldn't be said for the rest of the world. Yeah, technically Millis. Millis is really harsh for it. Again, Roxy herself had to experience that. Pedagus might be a man from legend, but he was also a participant of the war. Just as Reserved bore the mental scars from those events, perhaps Pedagus did as well. Again, that's something that really you have to take into consideration when you come to this part right here, and there's this discrimination that's happening. He's not attacking Roxy. Mind you, Aramonfi isn't killing Roxy on the spot. It's not an aspect that there's a death blow here that's happening. It's simply, you're not allowed in my tower. You're not allowed in my fortress. I will not let you walk onto these premises. Still, Rudeus did feel bad for Roxy. She came there with everything ready to go, and then it's oh yeah, that's right. I'm used to it. Don't worry about it, Rudeus. I'm used to it. Go on ahead. Have fun. But anyways, yes, that's when he hands everybody a little rod and then says, just hold on to that thing, and it's going to take you back to where we're at. Rudeus was wondering if it was imbued with teleportation magic. Was there really such a thing? It was awfully convenient. But they said humans couldn't be summoned. Wait, maybe this was fine, since it wasn't summoning magic. What was the difference between the two anyways? I have a question mark that he's having right here. I mean, we're technically going to be teleporting there, but it gives a sense here that Pedagus is going to be summoning them, but we're teleporting. But what's the difference? It's a good question mark. As Rudius stood there with the baton, he wondered if something could go wrong. Petagus was still a person, and people make mistakes. It was kind of scary, while imagining the worst-case scenario of being thrown into who knows where. A warmth transferred into his hand, and it felt like he was being yanked towards it. He wondered what would happen if he let go. Maybe it would fail. Glancing around, he realized that everyone was gone. No, Sylphie peered over at him for a second before vanishing, leaving only him and Roxy behind. Was he left behind? The second he thought that, his consciousness began to absorb into the baton. By the time he realized what was happening, everything was white. An empty space devoid of color. An invisible string yanked him along at an unbelievable speed. In a distance, he caught a glimpse of Sylphie being pulled by an invisible force. He wondered if this was what it's like to be on the opposite end of a summoning magic. He realized the setting seemed familiar. He'd seen it before. The man-god. This place resembled the area that he met the man-god in his dreams. Except in those dreams, he always had his former body. This time, he was Rudius, with robes flapping in the air. An enormous light lay waiting ahead. It was woven into a mysterious and complex magic circle, and it sucked him in as he approached. The next time he opened his eyes, there was a solid ground beneath him again. Rudius drew in a breath, like he was startled awake from a dream. Did he lose consciousness at some point? No, he remembered flying through a great expanse of nothingness. So, this was Petagus' summoning magic. It was a peculiar sensation. The last time he felt this was during the displacement incident. Back then, he also felt like he was soaring through the air. The difference this time was a sense of stability. The calamity was like a train running off its tracks. This time was like a taxi, safely delivering him to his correct destination. Sylphie whispered to him, that sure felt familiar. Yeah, it did, he responded. Looking around, everyone was there, all baffled by what they just experienced. At least, they were all safe. Honestly, when I first read this, the implications here was crazy, and they did a good job with the anime adaptation and sort of giving that filter to what he's sort of seeing there. It looks very familiar to like where the man god is, and like to give this little sense here of like, holy crap, this feels kind of familiar. It feels just like when the man god. But the big problem here is that it's not the same thing here because I still see myself. It's not like with that whole situation there. It's not the same thing here. And yes, there's the other individuals there. And also giving a lot of similarity here to specifically a displacement incident. Yeah, it's kind of that whole trip there of being like thrown feels the same, but it's not. I feel like there's a sense that somebody is sort of guiding it. I have this sort of taxi service instead. They know where I need to go. So there's a familiarity here, but it's not quite. It's not quite. But no, that's when we arrive at the floating fortress, which yes, the anime did a really good job of kind of, portraying here. I love this little moment where they go over to the edge of it and they look over. There's like a subtle showing of it, but yes, technically Sylphie right here is not too comfortable. Yeah, she has a little bit of issue with heights, and that's, probably to do with the displacement incident. But yes, Savaro introduced herself. They, introduce themselves to Savaro. They go traveling around the garden for a little bit. They cut straight through the garden to a stone gate resembling a triumphant arch. Zenoba hummed in appreciation. Seeing figures and dolls weren't his only interest. Maybe other forms of art as well. While Rudius had no way of judging its design, if Zenoba was impressed, it must be incredible. One couldn't resist gawking up at its chiseled patterns running the entire surface. Armafi describes it as a gate created by the Abyssal Dragon King Maxwell. Maxwell was talented for magical construction and craftsmanship. When Zenoba cried out, wondering where Maxwell was right now, she responded saying that he was the wandering type. Assuming that he hadn't already passed away, he was probably out venturing somewhere. Zenoba badly wanted to meet him. Naturally. But that's when they travel through the gates, and yes, a little bit of a sparkle comes off of both Sylphie and Rudius that Savaro picks up on. Very quickly, it's like up to this point, it's like traveling around here, showing off all the sights, and Zenoba's going crazy, and Savaro is talking about how magnanimous and amazing Petagus is, and then having this little moment where they cross this gate, suddenly this like little like appearance happens. It's like almost like a gate that tests you in some way. Very quickly, her attitude shifts. As they passed through the gate, white particles were falling off of Sylphie and Rudius. Savaro paused to face them. He sensed her demeanor shift. Armafi attacked him in the past, out of nowhere. It may happen again, so he thought it was best to clear up any misunderstandings before that. If they did something to offend her, it'd be best just to leave than fight, even if there was things that he wanted to ask Petagus. He asked her what the problem was. She said no, it was nothing important, that there was many people across the world just like them. She said, however, would you mind if I asked you one question? Do the words man god mean anything to either of you? Yeah, sure enough, like PTSD hits Rudius right here, because the last time this whole thing was brought up, Orsted killed him. Pretty much killed him. Rias kept his expression blank. Hearing Man God, memories of Orsted rushed back. Orsted had asked him a similar question. When he answered truthfully, he nearly killed him. Was it about to happen again? He hesitated. It could lead to hostility. It was true, Rias was dancing in the palm of that jerk's hand before, and he also helped Rias out. But he had no intentions of being one of his henchmen, even if he followed a lot of his advice. While he waffled silently, Sylphie answered it for them both. No, I've never heard that name before. Armalfi then asked, do you feel a deep-seated anger within your heart and an undeniable urge to kill when you hear that name? Sylphie shook her head, and Rudius did the same, but that struck a chord with Rudius. Orsted reacted the same way to the man god's name. If that bothered them, then maybe that meant Petagus and Orsted were at odds. It's so funny, I'm getting like nostalgia here for reading this again because I remember back when I read this, it was like, wait, Petagus and Orsted are at odds with each other? What's going on here? As we find out, they're both dragon folk, so it's like, wait, what? But that's when they arrive at the audience chamber. In the novel series at this point, Ariel's like, wait, we can't go in there in travel clothes. Can we go change first? And Armalfi's like, no, he actually really doesn't like that kind of stuff, like formalities and stuff like that. Like, he left Austrian nobility, like he got away from those people because he just didn't like that. You're probably better not making him wait and just come in there as you are. You'll probably be better off with him. You're gonna upset him if you make him wait or whatever. But no, she's like, oh, can I put my luggage away at least? And then they finally agree to that, and then they go off to the side, and Ariel changes, Zenoba changes, Regis kind of just dusts himself off before they finally go to the audience chamber. Yeah, she said, in fact, he found the formalities in the Austrian kingdom suffocating. I believe that you'd find his reception more positive if you go as you are instead of changing. She still does it. But yeah, that's when we enter the audience chamber. I never got the sense of like the weird, crazy thing above Petagus. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, everything else in here kind of was to how I sort of envisioned it when I read it. Reus describes Petagus as having brilliant silver hair and golden pupils, small yet piercing. This was the armored dragon king Petagus. Reus's legs began to quake when he laid eyes on him, and he knew instantly what made him fearful. The man looked eerily similar to the silver-haired man who killed him. Their clothes, hairstyle, and facial features were different, but there was something unmistakably similar about Petagus and Dragon God Orsted. The chamber was massive, pillars that resembled massive trees. The walls strung with banners, painted with complex emblems, some recognized as the crest of the Austral Kingdom and holy country of Milis. Others were familiar, but Brutus hadn't seen some before. 11 men and women lined the side of the velvet rug. These had to be the 12 familiars, although they looked like humans. Armalfi had been Ghislaine's match in combat, so they were probably of the level of a sword king. Ruiz did not want to make enemies of them, so he'd watch his words carefully. Yeah, that's kind of the crazy thing about Petagus. It's not just him, it's his familiars that, again, one of them were equal with Ghislaine. And Ghislaine is pretty damn powerful. But yeah, that's when Nanahoshi talks to Petagus, gets to find out that apparently she was studying summoning magic to one day hopefully come back and show him what she had learned for the return that he would teach her summoning magic of this world. This is this cool thing about sort of how the dragon folk seem to be. You know, in different stories, long-lived individuals do different things. I mean, technically in this story, we have another individual that is long-lived, and that is Bodigadi. We've met Bodigadi, who is an individual that just wants to seem to have fun. That's all you want to do is have fun and meet interesting people, it seems like. It seems like with the dragon folk specifically, they just like to hunger for something. There's something they want to do. Like the individual that we've already talked about up until this point is like Maxwell and Chaos. These individuals that seem to like form their craft or at least study into something. And right here we have Petagus is hearing about that she's learned something new. She's done something new with something from another world, and he's intrigued by it. Oh, let me find out. She's like, well, it might not be what you're wanting. It's like, I don't care. I want to know what you learned. I want to learn what you learned. It's fascinating stuff. Yeah, it's when Nanahoshi introduced the other individuals with her, and the first one to step up is Ariel. I like how very quickly he sniffs out who she is and what she's there for. He says, Ariel Anemoi Osfra, you say. I already know who you are. You lost in that filthy, underhanded battle for the crown they're having in Osfra. But you refuse to concede. Instead, you're dragging everyone around you into muddy waters of conflict. Foolish girl. Not good first impressions. And this is an interesting thing because it's noting the fact that he knows what's happening. Like, he knows what's happening down there. There's some stupid conflict that's happening, and you're a part of it, and you're failing miserably, and you're dragging everybody into it. You're just dragging everybody through the mud. Not good first impressions. I mean, you get a sense of that in the anime. Like, later on, Sylphie's like, yeah, we're trying to communicate to this guy, and he just does not seem to be picking up on Ariel at all. Doesn't seem to want to care about Ariel at all. And it's sad because at some point, she's trying to give off that she's not interested in, like, getting him to help her. But no, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing here. That's when he turns to Rudius, gets upset about the fact that it took him a while to get him up there. Oh, yeah, it was a pain getting you up here. But no, specifically he says, normally when using teleportation magic, you can't call upon someone with greater mana than your own. Your mana closely resembles that of Laplace. If you were determined to resist me, I likely couldn't have teleported you at all. Rudius thought to himself, Laplace was the demon god that Pedagogue sealed away 400 years ago. Every time someone appraised my magic, they brought up him. Their mana must be really similar. Yeah, technically back with Kishirika, I think it was. Kishirika mentioned the same thing. I mean, she had like, it's like, yeah. Your mana, yeah. Body Gotti, I think, was the same thing as well. Like, everybody that appraises his mana says that same thing. When Rudius apologizes for the whole situation, Pedagogue says, no matter, but I would warn you against trying to use that repulsive magic of yours in my castle. Rudius realized that he wasn't just talking him down for doing something stupid. It was a warning. Rudius wondered why he was being so wary of him. He wasn't the type to go berserk for no reason. No, even with a reason. Maybe Pedagogue remembers what happened before the displacement incident, where Amalfi tried to kill him. Maybe he thought Rudius held a grudge and wanted to hit water under the bridge. That's when Rudius speaks up. If this is about what happened at the displacement incident, I hold no grudge against you or anything, so... That's when Amalfi has to go over to Pedagogue and whisper in his ear, oh, now I remember, you were that boy that was trying to use magic in the sky that was protected by the Sword King. So that boy was you, huh? Rudius thought, crap, he didn't remember. He just dug himself deeper, bringing it up like it was like announcing a grudge. They didn't seem to be holding it against him, and he didn't do anything wrong, right? That's when Pedagogue brings up a little fact that he knows about. He says, Rudius Greyrat, from what I hear, is also the name of a person who managed to injure Orsted. So he knows about that. So Pedagogue right here knows about Rudius' fight with Orsted. Rudius thought his damage was like a paper cut. If he knew about that, then Orsted must be an acquaintance. Rudius figured that much, since Orsted was the common line between Nanahoshi and the king of this castle. Yeah, the assumption here is that Orsted brought Nanahoshi to Pedagogue. Pedagogue says, those with talent like yours get overconfident in your abilities sometimes. Being able to injure the dragon god no doubt gave you an inflated sense of self-esteem. However, if you choose to fight me, death is all that awaits. In an instant, his familiars radiated bloodlust. Rudius wanted to tell them to stop. He didn't want to fight them. He only came to learn about Zenith's illness and a little bit about summoning magic. Pedagogue must be under the mistaken impression he fought Orsted as an equal. And that's how he wounded him. But he had 12 familiars here, and Rudius knew about their abilities from the books, but that wasn't the same as seeing them in the battlefield. With them all being at least capable as Ghislaine, numbers would overwhelm him, and that's not even including Pedagogue himself and what he possessed. There was no way he'd survive taking them all on, and he had no intentions to do so. He's like, I have no intentions to oppose you, Lord Pedagogue. A wise decision. I like clever people. The foolish only blind others, but the intelligent help each other grow. Again, there's like an emphasis here more of the idea of like, I don't really want to fight you, but I like people that are smart and people that bring information. He's liking what he's seeing right here with like Nanahoshi, as we see in a minute, Zenoba. In other words, clever people didn't oppose him. Rudius didn't consider himself the intelligent type, but he was smart enough not to pick a fight with him. That's when, yes, Nanahoshi speaks up and says, please, can you be more nice to him? Like, his mana pull was really helpful in my research. Okay, if she says so, I'll be nice to you. This is like a total moment where Rudius like digs his own grave. And I kind of wish there was more emphasis in this in the anime. Is the fact that like he came there and Pedagogue didn't know who he was. And Rudius was afraid that there was like animosity. So it's obviously about that whole situation. And he brings it up. And then now Pedagogue is like, oh, I heard you fought Orsted. And all that whole thing with the displacement incident where I sent my guy after you. Oh, so you're here to fight me then? Okay, let's fight. No, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you. Anyways, yes, that's when Rudius asks him about the illness. And yes, he points directly over to Elise. There's somebody with a similar situation as your mother's. And that is this lady right there. One of my companions brought her out of Labyrinth one time. Wait, why don't you tell your boy about that? Wait, you haven't told him? Why haven't you told him anything? But yeah, Pedagogus goes on to say, I have heard that there are old labyrinths out there that take people as captives. That person becomes the heart of the labyrinth, allowing it to function. The mana that flows through them as a result transforms them. They all lose their memories without exception, and in return, their body is imbued with a mysterious power. I believe you call such people cursed children and blessed children. Yeah. Reese asks, why do these labyrinths use people, though? Pedagogus responds, I do not know. There's a theory that ancient demons gave birth to these labyrinths and their creatures in a quest to create a paradise for themselves. The magic crystal at the center of those labyrinths is supposed to distribute mana to all of its inhabitants. There, they can thrive without ever going hungry. It wouldn't be a surprise if these older labyrinths take humans captive to increase their efficiency. It's a very interesting thing, and this sort of does bring up in Reese's head the teleportation labyrinth. There was these devouring devils in there, and he wondered what they were feasting on in those tunnels. It made sense. Yeah, there's all these monsters inside of this labyrinth. What are they eating? What exactly are they eating? It makes sense. But he also corrects himself. Roxy said that she was running out of mana when she was in Labyrinth, and she's a demon. If this place is created so that demons can live in there forever, Roxy wasn't pulling that off. So obviously, it was an overstatement to say that it feeds into the inhabitants, unless the monsters had some way to absorb the mana from the empty space. It's a curious theory, but it all kind of, again, technically is a rabbit hole that we're chasing over what is going on here. We're questioning about Zenith right here. Back to the topic at hand, even though that's very interesting stuff. But yeah, anyways, that's when they get into Elenice being involved with the whole situation. They question why she never said anything about it. She says, I never recovered my memories. I didn't say anything because I thought Zenith's case might be different. Her face contorted in pain, despite how bravely she had spoken. Cliff gently wrapped his arm around her shoulder. Reese was too confused to speak. Sure, she acted strange back then, but he never dreamed such a thing happened to her. Elenice said, I'm sorry. It felt like I needed to tell you, but you've been so happy lately that I was hesitant to bring it up. Besides, Zenith's curse isn't a danger to her life. I thought perhaps she was a blessed child, or that maybe she'd recover, and there'd be no adverse side effects at all. Yeah, that's technically the thing that she's bringing up here. I didn't say anything because I never got my memories back. And yes, technically, she's a cursed child. This thing that she has to deal with all the time is a curse upon her. There's a fear here that, yes, technically Zenith could have the same thing happening to her. She could be a cursed child right now and suffering. And why didn't you say anything? We need to find out what is wrong with her, if anything is wrong with her. I didn't say anything because it looked like you were happy and nothing was happening to her, and I knew that her life wasn't in danger, and so I figured let's just keep things going as is. And again, she technically could recover, unlike me. I had never recovered, but maybe she could. There's a conflict here that Elenice had. Reese had no intention of blaming her, but she gave him advice on Zenith's condition. When they were in the Begaric continent, he assumed that she was sharing wisdom accumulated over the years, but apparently it was personal experience. She probably had her reasons. Maybe she thought Zenith might be different, that she would regain her memories, or perhaps she simply didn't want to twist the knife after the loss of Paul. She was being considerate. Still, Reese wished that she'd said a little bit more about the curse Zenith might be afflicted with. Yes, the big thing there. It's like, yeah, I don't expect her to say all this stuff, and yes, we just lost Paul, and she's being considerate about that, but again, the biggest fear here is, does Zenith have a curse? Is there something hurting her? Could she die from something? Again, what Elenice herself is experiencing is something that, makes her physically ill. Without someone to have sex with her, she falls, extremely ill. Yeah, that's when attention goes to Zenoba. Oh, Sharon, you want me to help you with your kingdom too? No, hell no. I don't want anything to do with that. Zenoba's like, I don't want anything to do with that. This book right here. I see all these crests all over the place. Who is this? But no, Zenoba produced a notebook from his pocket with a crest from the doll drawn on it. Reese realized that the walls were covered with numerous crests. Several looked familiar. One of them was the same one carved on the monument of the 7 great powers. Another to the dragon god Orsted. Another was carved on the magical implement, keeping the teleportation ruins hidden. Judging by the incantation, the crest likely belonged to the holy dragon emperor Sharad. The one beside it was the same one that was drawn on Zenoba's book. Pedagogus recognized it. It was a maniacal dragon king, Chaos. Yep. Apparently he's the one that created that thing, and unfortunately he's dead. Zenoba's like, damn it! I want to meet the dude! Damn it! I do love this, though, because, of everybody in that room, nobody is gaining favor of Pedagogus. Like, Nanahoshi, he's got favor of, and that's really around, again, mutual understanding about research and learning new things. He can gain something from Nanahoshi. Nanahoshi is seeking knowledge, and he wants that knowledge. Let's converse. Let's talk about what we both know. Let's both learn together. Ruius is like, hey, I don't have bad feelings for you. Definitely not going to fight you. You got Ariel's over here. You're obviously here because you want me to fight for you. You want me to fight your wars, right? Zenoba is like, no, I don't want you to fight my wars. Let's geek out about this stuff. And that's what Pedagoose likes. Pedagoose loves how much Zenoba loves what they do. Let's talk about it. Let's geek out about art. So it's like knowledge sharing and art are like these two things that we find out in this whole meeting room that really kind of connects with Pedagoose. Everything else, I don't care. You want to fight? Okay, I don't care. Get out of here. Don't waste my time. But yeah, that's when we cut over to Sylphie. At which point, Silvaro goes over and whispers in his ear. So it was you both, he says. Ruius wondered if they did something to upset him. Sylphie did have quite the maniple, but it wasn't as vast as Ruius's. Maybe it bothered him that she once had green hair in the past. He then asks, do they have a son? Do the two of them have a son? To which she responds, no, I have a daughter. He says, very well, if you should ever give birth to a boy, bring him before me. I will name him for you. Before he gives a thin, eerie smile. Ruius is like, is he implying that there'd be something wrong if their child was a boy? That was mildly discomforting. Why are you bringing up a boy randomly? Very curious. Very, very curious. And again, it seems to be implying that it has something to do with what Amalfi observed, which again should be the archway, which specifically brought up the question mark about individuals that have something about the man god about them. It's a massive question mark. But yeah, that's when they bring up the displacement incident and how, by all signs, it seems like it's not something that was caused by someone, according to him, but it was actually just a random occurrence. It's just an accident. Something just happened. I've been investigating it. It just doesn't seem like it's something that could have been caused by somebody. Ruius hadn't thought about it lately. The displacement incident that teleported Nanahoshi here from Japan. It made sense that magic powerful enough to rip someone from their own dimension would have some kind of recoil. In Ruius' case, he just happened to be reincarnated here. But perhaps the laws of physics and magic here was different when someone came here with their original body. Of course, the opposite could be true. Maybe someone was trying to accomplish something else, and the recoil of their magic happened to summon Nanahoshi instead, which meant the whole thing was just an accident. But yes, finally, that wraps up the audience. That was a long audience. Ruius felt, while an hour, it felt like a day of discussion. While he wanted to see more of the fortress, for now he would rest. He was surprised by the crest that he had seen, and there were so many names that came up in the conversation that he didn't recognize, like the Abyssal Dragon King and the Maniacal Dragon King. If he remembered right, they were part of the 5 dragon generals. Way back in the mythical age, they faced off with a dragon god that claimed all their lives. Surely they weren't the same people from those myths. The ones from the stories were likely many generations before the ones that they had brought up. Of those 5, 3 had been mentioned today. Armored Dragon King Pedagoose, Abyssal Dragon King Maxwell, and Maniacal Dragon King Chaos. There was also one of those names that he heard in the incantation for the teleportation ruins. Holy Dragon Emperor Sharad. That made 4 of them. There was supposed to be 1 Dragon Emperor and 4 Dragon Kings, which will have 1 more Dragon King. But now that he thought about it, he'd only seen 4 crests resembling the dragon gods on the walls. Maybe the last one was on bad terms with Pedagoose. Good question mark. It was still surprising, the connection with the doll. He knew that he had seen the crest somewhere before, but to think that it belonged to one of the Dragon Kings. He knew nothing about the language in those memos, but perhaps Pedagoose could decipher it for them, since it could help them progress massively. Maybe he should ask, or not. Pedagoose didn't seem fond with him. In fact, he seemed wary of him. Ruius decided that he's going to have Zenoba pester him instead. They both seem to have appreciation for art. Yeah, it seems like Pedagoose is going to take a look at his treasures. Have him do it. Wait, this meant the Maniacal Dragon King lived in his house. The Dragon King of all people, cooped up inside of his basement to fiddle with dolls. Something must have been wrong in his head. Well, seeing as Chaos and Zenoba seemed to be on the same wavelength, the title Maniacal made sense. He must have really loved dolls. That said, Ruius was hoping to learn summoning magic from Pedagoose, but at this rate, it was unlikely. He was so hostile towards him. If he asked, he may say, what, planning to summon Laplace with all that mana of yours? Ruius wondered if such things was even possible. Pegasus did say it was impossible to summon someone whose mana was greater than your own. That meant that he could actually summon him. He wouldn't, of course, but it made sense why Pegasus had such animosity towards him. Yeah? Although Pegasus hated him, he didn't drive him out of the castle or start a fight. For a moment, he could breathe easy. And thus, Rios' first day on the floating fortress came to an end in a silent contemplation. Again, this is multiple days that they're here. As when we cut to the third and final chapter they adapted for this particular anime episode. And we get into the story of Elise Dragon Road. Now, yes, the anime kind of covers most of this, but there's a little bit more details in the novel version, and it seems like they kind of softened some of the language that was used. 200 years ago, a girl was rescued from the labyrinth. She lost all of her memories and emotions. No idea who she was, only that she was an elf because she looked like one. Thus, she was placed in an elven settlement and resumed her life there. The people welcomed her even though she was a stranger, her memories never returning, but emotions did after a few years. There's a hope there again with what Elise is currently, her situation is currently. Hopefully at least Zenith's emotions will come back. She was cheerful and sociable and soon fell in love. However, after they become intimate, she began to experience a problem. Her libido spiked. She wanted to have sex every night. Elves weren't inclined to frequent intimacy. Compared to humans and goblins, while her partner struggled to keep up, they lived in harmony. However, something strange happened to her body around that time. She started birthing small magical crystals every month. Inside was an incredibly dense accumulation of mana. When she told her husband, he was unnerved by it, but assured her that it was nothing to worry about. And then later, he started selling them to Human Town. It seemed like his eyes were clouded by greed. One could hardly blame him for coveting the money they earned him. He had never been rich, and his wife didn't work. At least the man didn't treat her like his own money tree. Tragedy struck 5 years later when the husband died. Rather, he was murdered. His cargo of expensive crystals caught the attention of bandits. They took his life and his wealth. Now a widow, she fell into depression, yet endured. It unfortunately took 10 days before her insatiable libido ballooned again. Despite knowing it was wrong, she found a willing man in the village to stave it off. 10 days passed. Another man. 10 more. Again. It didn't take long for word to get out about her appetite, and women drove her out. She then became a prostitute, then a slave, finally an adventurer. It's said to this day she continues to wander the world. Again, it's a little bit more graphic in the novel, and the idea of, again, mostly around, like, specifically the women driving her out, the insatiable thirst for, sex and all this kind of stuff. All that stuff is a little bit more... And I don't even think they mentioned the fact that she became a prostitute and a slave, which was much different as well. Unless the translation's off on the anime, I don't know. But yeah, cutting to Rudius with Elise. She came to him first day in the morning to tell the story. He was honestly stunned. Despite only needing to know about the curse, she spared no detail. Yeah, it feels like this is an overcorrection of, I didn't tell you anything, now here's everything. I'm not going to hide anything now. And yeah, technically it does mention the fact that, yes, before their wedding, she told Cliff about this entire story. Sylphie, she didn't tell. Elise says that she doesn't know, and she doubts that she wants to know about her grandmother once selling her body for money. He shrugged. I don't think Sylphie would care about that kind of thing. But this is a big point here, actually. Elise has always had a fear that Sylphie will sort of feel like she's going to be like her grandmother. Elise feels like she's such a failure and there's so much wrong with her and that she's disgusting, that she's dirty, that she's going around sleeping with people, that she's causing so many problems for so many people around her. She's afraid that this will kind of be bestowed upon Sylphie, or that people around Sylphie will think that she's going to be just like Elise. She's always had that fear. She says right here, I just hope that you won't look at her with a different light if you hear ill rumors about me somewhere. She may have my blood running through her, but she's just a normal girl. She said the same thing back at the wedding. Please, Rios, don't leave her. Please, she's not me. I assure you, she's not me. Don't worry. You're disgusted by me, but that's not her. Rios thought Sylphie wasn't responsible for what Elise may have done in the past. Still, after hearing this, it made sense that she kept it a secret, as well as her relation to Sylphie. No one wants people to look at them differently. The past was the past. There was things in his own that he didn't want to reveal. Yeah, his whole entire past life. He couldn't pretend things he had done in his previous life didn't exist. But that story would stay in his head and in his head alone. I mean, he did technically tell Roxy a little bit of it. He told Roxy a little bit of it. That's when he asks what exactly is her curse. She says, "The mana in my body builds and coalesces into magic crystal upon receiving a man's seed. If I don't receive a man's seed, the mana will continue to build until it kills me." Again, there's a significant reason why she has to have sex, and that's why it makes her ill. That's why she's almost got like a major fever. He questions, "But you were fine for the first couple of years, right?" She says, "I honestly don't entirely understand that either. At the time, I wasn't having a monthly cycle, so maybe that had something to do with it." Ruiz trailed off and thought, if it had something to do with her menstrual cycle, maybe it was her ova that was transforming into magic crystals. In that case, Zenith's curse was probably something different altogether. He assumed that she still has her monthly visits. After all, she had already given birth to children. Although Lilia hadn't given Ruiz the details, she was still only 35 years old or so. That's when he questions Elise about her memories, and she shakes her head, saying that she doesn't remember anything. Ruiz thought, which means that she didn't even know who she was exactly. There was a slim chance that she could suddenly remember someday, but if she hadn't in 200 years, it seemed unlikely she ever would. Yeah, and you could expect that Zenith probably isn't going to last that long to hopefully someday get her memories. Elise says Zenith's condition is different than mine, judging by how she acts. It seems that she knows who her own children are. Perhaps she may regain her memories. That's a good point. That's a good point, right? Unlike Elise, who doesn't remember anything, at least Zenith is like doing things that she used to do. She's attending the garden just like she used to do. She's recognizing Norn and doting on Norn. She's recognizing individuals. That's when Maria's questions about the curse, about specifically Zenith's curse. She says, at the moment, she isn't showing signs of having one like mine. She most likely has a different curse on her, which leads them to kind of question what that could possibly be. And it really just kind of leads them to thinking, okay, well, it doesn't seem like it's lethal. It doesn't seem like anything's harming her currently. Ultimately, it comes down to the same thing that we had before we came here. The current plan was just keep an eye on her, and hopefully something changes. We're back to there. Just keep an eye on her. But yeah, they wrap up the conversation with her apologizing for not saying anything. She lowers her head. He in his own head's realizing that he'd be a hypocrite if he got mad at her. Sure, it sucks that she didn't say anything sooner, but he also felt guilty that he didn't share his previous life with Sylphie and Roxy. It's painful memories for her, obviously. These are painful memories for her. And again, there's a lot of this is to do with the fact that she didn't want to scare Rudius. And again, there were kind of trying to move on from the loss of Paul, all that kind of stuff. That's when we cut over to the first lesson, which it gets into the fact that Nenahoshi essentially was supposed to be taught summoning magic from Petagoose. But she wanted to bring everybody else that was there, like Cliff and Rudius and all them. She wanted to have them involved with the lessons, which required them to go back to the basics. At which point, they kind of just shifted over to Savaro training them. Like, Petagoose can't train them. Okay, well, if you're going back to the basics, Petagoose isn't going to bother. Let's get Savaro in here. Which, yes, that's where we have a little bit of a lesson. Unfortunately, the anime just kind of skips over it, which makes sense. A lot of it is what Nenahoshi had explained to Rudius before. But a lot of this is also changing some stuff as well and correcting some stuff. First, Savaro asks Cliff, what is summoning magic? There was two types of summoning magic. First was bestowal, which was mostly used to create magical implements. In other words, the drawing of summoning circles. Cliff specialized in this, and it was big in Shariah. The second was invocation, used to summon anything in existence, from simple animals to intelligent beings. It could also be used to summon spirits that existed somewhere out in the world. No professors in Shariah could perform invocation magic, while amateurs, even the guild, only had a few people who could. Maybe another country was monopolizing that school of magic. The assumption here is it might be similar to Millis, keeping things like barrier magic under their control. Or maybe it was simply that no one around Shariah could teach it. Cliff's knowledge was about the same as Rudius's, because he relayed the same information. Savaro responded, that is incorrect. It is true that summoning magic requires a magic circle by nature, but the drawing of a circle is not, in itself, part of the school of magic. Rudius then asks, which means that the latter qualifies as summoning magic then? Savaro says yes, but Cliff wasn't wrong when he said that there was two types of summoning magic. In other words, bestowal wasn't one of those types. There was two types of summoning magic, fiend summoning and spirit summoning. Rudius remembered that spirits were beings that existed in their world, but rarely showed themselves. Only kind that he had seen were lamplight spirits summoned from a scroll. Rudius asks what's the difference between those two. She says, fiend summoning, as you humans well know, allows you to call upon a beast living somewhere out in the wild. Per an ancient covenant, anything considered to be a person cannot be summoned. However, everything else that exists in the world can be. Rudius asks, what's the ancient covenant? When summoning magic was first born into this world, our ancestors made a covenant. Magic cannot break those ancient rules. Rios thought, so people can't be summoned. Was this really true? I mean, it's a good question mark right now, right? What's so different between teleporting and summoning people? Rios stopped himself, not that it mattered. The important thing was getting down the basics. He could ask more nuanced questions later. He asked her to continue. I'm like, no, continue. No, let's stay on this. Let's stay on this one. This is actually more interesting. But no, Silvarl goes on. Very well. In fiend summoning, one cannot invoke a creature with more mana than they possess themselves. Even if they do so, there was a high likelihood that they won't be able to control the creature they summon. Yeah, that was a story that they had where they summoned something they weren't able to control. Considering his vast mana pool, he probably wouldn't have that issue, but he had no idea if they would obey him or not. Not that he had plans of summoning anything powerful. He already had 3 pets in his house. I don't need any more minions. Rios then blurted out, oh yeah, are living creatures the only thing that you can summon? Silvarl says, yes, you cannot summon the dead. He corrects, no, I mean things like, could I summon some clothes that were at my house right now? She says, I'm afraid that's impossible. Rios thought, so he couldn't summon Roxy's Pantsu. That's all he wants. He wants to learn how to do summoning magic so he can summon Roxy's Pantsu from his basement. But then he thought, wait, Nanahoshi summoned a plastic bottle. Surely it wasn't impossible. Maybe it was more that people hadn't figured out how to do it yet, which would explain Pedagus's interest in Nanahoshi's research, because now it meant that it was possible. That's why he agreed to aid her. Yeah, again, it's sharing information. It's sharing that knowledge. Right here, Automonophy's saying, no, you can't do that. And Nanahoshi's over there like, we did it. We did it. Silvarl then continued, spirit summoning, as the name implies, involves the creation of a spirit. You expend mana in the process to create a spirit with certain abilities. Such is how spirit summoning operates. For example, Rios in his own mind is thinking about the scroll of lamplight. He wasn't summoning a lamplight from somewhere. Like, there wasn't a spirit lamplight somewhere, like, chilling, waiting for him to pull it over. It's actually creating it. She continues, spirits possess a low level of intelligence and will obey their summoner's orders until they use up all of their mana. Rios' question, is it absolute? She said, no. If you specifically construct the circle so that they won't follow your orders, then a spirit with free will shall be created instead. Rios thought it's almost like programming, which, speaking of programming, he felt like he heard a similar concept before. And yeah, this is something that technically Nanahoshi brought up way back before he went off to the teleportation labyrinth. Cliff then speaks up, says, that seems a bit odd to me. Those of you who serve Pedagus were spirits summoned 400 years ago, yes? You're awfully intelligent in that case, and it's odd that you haven't disappeared in the intervening centuries. Silvarl nodded cheerfully. I am glad you brought that up. Lord Pedagus's predecessors, the first armored dragon king, passed on his knowledge of how to create 11 ancient, highly intelligent and powerful spirits. Ordinarily, spirits of such caliber would not last more than a single day, but Pedagus has developed a way to maintain them for centuries. So he's coded this stuff. Again, these are like coded stuff. She sounded boastful, and Rios could see why. This was quite a feat to maintain for such a period of time. It was perpetual motion, a concept just as incredible in his previous world as this. Rios asks, don't you mean 12? She says, no, 11. I am not one of Lord Pedagus's spirits. Interesting. She's not one of the ones that were summoned. She says, Lord Pedagus saved me during the Laplace War, and I have served him ever since. I am simply one of the Skyfolk. Rios thought if the others were his servants, perhaps she was more a confidant. Or lover? No, that wasn't the only bond that existed in the world. But anyways, when questioning which one they were going to learn, she says we'll primarily focus on fiend summoning. However, Lord Pedagus considers the summoning of things from another world to resemble that of spirit summoning. So I'm sure we will touch on that as well. He thought it would be fun to summon monsters from across the world and open a zoo. At this point, both Zenoba and Cliff speak up that they want to learn specifically more about spirit summoning, which this pretty much clicks for Rudius that, yeah, this technically could help them with, learning how to build that doll they're doing. The automated doll itself, the way that it works, is almost like programming. So potentially learning spirit summoning might help them complete the doll. While it didn't seem easy to succeed where the maniacal Dragon King Chaos failed, he was sure this magic would be handy all the same. Anyways, Silvarl started their lessons. Rios was sadly behind the others in drawing magic circles. Like a dropout rejoining his peers, he should have learned the basics instead of leaving it to everyone else. But one was never too old to start. he was only 18. Looking at Zenoba, he was in his mid-20s. Reese felt that he could learn from his example. After this lesson, he wanted to put in some revision and practice. Yeah, again, this is some interesting stuff. I've always loved this lore stuff, especially like the mechanics of the magics and stuff in this world. Getting to learn more about fiend summoning and spirit summoning specifically is very, very interesting. It's more so the idea of like, clarifying exactly how this stuff works. With specifically like programming and making something versus pulling something from somewhere else. This idea of not being able to pull and control something that has higher mana than you. Again, tying the possibility of it being similar to teleportation magic as well, whereas Petagus himself was having trouble pulling Rudius in, that kind of stuff being almost an example of it. And then yes, getting into the idea of all of his familiars, them being coded, literally coded to function that way. And again, applying that to the automaton. It's like all this stuff feels like it's all code in a way, and they sort of accent each other, potentially can be used for each other, or there's similarities there that you can apply to each other. It's cool stuff. I love this stuff. Which again is a bummer if they skip it, but it's understandable. It's a lot of mumbo jumbo they don't want to get into with the anime. Anyways, yeah, after that we have the whole meal, which I loved. I loved in the novel, loved seeing it portrayed in the anime. That yes, at some point they asked, hey, do you want us to make something? And then Reese is like, hey, can you find something that's like this? Oh yeah, we have something like that in Pearl Kingdom. Let's go get that over there. They like gather some ingredients and whatnot. They try to make something like a Japanese meal. Riz has them make something resembling a Japanese meal, and this is something that Nanahoshi really has. I mean, Nanahoshi is getting things from Rudius that he's making that's similar, and it's stuff that she enjoys. But this is another one of those moments of kind of sitting her down and giving her a little piece of home. It's mainly for Rudius, but in the end, it impacts Nanahoshi. Again, Nanahoshi wants so badly to go home. Rudius is happy in his new life. Nanahoshi wants to get back to the previous life. And so to give her like this meal that is very reminiscent of Japan, it just overwhelms her. And it's funny because it's just like, it doesn't even have this and doesn't even taste like this. And Rudius is even agreeing, yeah, it doesn't taste like it. It doesn't taste like it at all. Like the flavors are off. Some of it's too powerful, whatnot. It's trying too hard. It's got too much of a flavor or something like that. But it's still enough for her to have that nostalgia and it just overwhelm her. It's so good. Seeing her cry, and again, she wants to get home so bad. She wants to get home so bad. Which makes the end of this episode sucky. Let her go! That's when we cut over to Rudius walking around. At some point, he ends up spotting Cliff and Zenoba, and then Nanahoshi joins them as they go down inside this little tunnel, looking around underneath there. There's a point in the novel where it talks about specifically block pattern piling, specifically how like the structures and whatnot underneath are built to sort of support everything that's above it, seemingly kind of noting that whatever kind of built this was sort of advanced. Rudius thought seeing a block pattern piling was quite a shock. He wondered if someone from the Warring States period had built this castle. But no, that wasn't a Japan-only technique. Surely people here came up with this method as well. Stone architecture was pretty common in this world. But yes, a little bit later on, they end up running into the murals. The murals! The portrayal of them in the anime was really nice. I liked how they looked. There's a little bit of a weird filtering to it, but overall it was really nice. I think they give it a little bit too much of a sharp look. I think that's the only part that kind of just makes it feel a little bit off. But yeah, in the novel it says, describing the mural's contents was difficult, but they seemed to tell a story. Every painting featured a unique individual. It gave the impression that the person that documented it had seen and experienced these images. However, since they were merely illustrations, the scenes and events were somewhat unclear. Mountains turned upside down, people with wings, a figure revered by all people like a king, floating rocks, gathered people, dragons soaring through the skies, two figures embracing alongside a single baby, a fallen person, a grieving king, an enraged king, people consulting each other, an enormous shadow looming behind them all, and lastly, a final image that seemed to depict the story's conclusion, though it remained unfinished, leaving its meaning unknown. That's when, yes, Petagus steps in. I found it very interesting how Petagus responds to this. And again, this is a place that's down here. It seems like it's important. It was here when he technically, restored the floating fortress. And he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it, but he still leaves it here because it seems like it's there for a reason. He says, as for the murals, I wasn't the one that created them. When I first obtained this floating fortress, there was almost nothing left inside. There were traces of what once existed here, but it had all faded and crumbled away. The only thing left intact were these wall paintings. and they have stayed in good condition ever since. Everything else wasted away, and from them I realized our ancestors had a message they wanted to pass on, a story they wanted their predecessors to inherit. That's why I haven't locked the door to this room. If someone comes and wants to see them, I have no reason to refuse. Of course, only one such person like that has ever appeared. And it's interesting right here because he technically turns to Rudius as he's continuing this message. But yeah, when Zenoba starts to gush about how amazing this thing is and how captivating it is, he responds, I would like to agree with you, but I'm not fond of these paintings. There's something suffocating about them. They make me nauseated. Again, it's free for people to interpret what's on these walls. I will not say a single damn thing about this stuff, but this is the stuff that really fascinates me. Getting this kind of stuff makes your kind of, the wheels start to turn crazy, like, why does Petagoose hate this thing? Who is this person that came by to see it? Why is so suffocating about it for him? But after this, we cut over to Rudius sitting down with Sylphie. Apparently things aren't going well with Ariel trying to curry favor with Petagoose. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her. I like it because they're mentioning the fact that like she's offering all this stuff. She's offering like a place here, territory, all this stuff, and it doesn't seem like he cares about any of it. And Rudius is like, well, yeah, no wonder she's having trouble. She's like, what do you mean? I mean, he chose to live here away from all that. So either he's not interested in it, or he actively it disgusts him. She's like, what? But I thought he chose to live out here because it was more convenient to stopping the demon god from ever rising again. Wait, he said that? Wait, he said that? Wait, I missed that part. But no, he says, that's not what I mean. If he wants power, he's already in position to take it for himself. Again, people fear him. He's a hero. He could easily go down there and take over the Oscar Kingdom. People love him as a hero. They would probably accept him to take over. Again, they were talking earlier about how the people of Oscar Kingdom seen him equal to their king. If he wanted that, he could take it. He doesn't want it. Obviously, he doesn't want it. He's the hero from Laplace's War, after all. Serval said that he found the formality in the Oscar court suffocating. If you try to reel him in with power and prestige, it's only going to blow up in your face. Rudius thought if he wanted to leave the fortress, he could have done so. But he's also been here for decades. Surely Petagoose has his reasons. Yeah, he's up here for a reason. Gotta tap into that. And I like how his response there is really, get to know him. Get to know him a little bit. Go talk to him. Ask about his heroic tales. Find out more about him, what he's interested in, his hobbies, stuff like that. And that's what he sort of ultimately alludes to. Take Zenoba with you. He's really good at tapping in on that stuff. He's coming to a connection. Look at what Zenoba's doing. Do what he's doing. Bring him with you. Get in there every now and then. If you pull off becoming a friend of his, he might be willing to help you out. But yeah, then he starts talking about Nanahoshi and making the food for her, and then Sylphie starts to get a little jealous. Oh man, this part actually, there's a part of this that actually hurts a little bit, and it's the fact that she's kind of teasing him a little bit with this whole Nanahoshi thing, and it's something that's honestly for him, it's scaring him. Because for Rudius, again, when he did the whole thing with Roxy, he thought that would drive away Sylphie, and Sylphie accept Roxy. But there's still always this fear of like, I'll never do it again because I'm afraid of hurting Sylphie again. I broke my promise once, I don't want to do it again kind of thing. Even though he did mention to her previously after Sarah, I think there might be somebody else. But no, she says, you surely are awfully nice to Nanahoshi. Hanging with another girl was really a no-go after all. Zenoba and Cliff were present, so they weren't alone. But he did go out of his way to make a meal for her. He needed to fix Sylphie's mood. He asked to hold her in his arms, but she looked away with puffed cheeks. Was she really pissed at him? Maybe it was the lull period that people spoke about in marriages. The cursed 3-year marriage mark. Again, he legit thinks that his marriage is going to fall apart with Sylphie right here. That's when she says, just kidding. Sorry for pulling your leg like that. But you look like you were having so much fun talking to her, so I want to get back at you a little. She stuck her tongue out and threw her arms around him for a hug. She was warm and petite. He loved the feel of her. Perhaps he deserved to have her hate him, but nevertheless, he didn't want her to. He'd have to be more careful. Again, he legit right here thinks that he messed something up with Sylphie. Yeah. After that, she decides to part ways. Says she's going to go back to Princess Ariel. And Rudius is right here thinking, yeah, there's something definitely going up. I definitely screwed something up. And yes, just so happens, right when she goes to leave, there's somebody at the door. And it happens to be Nanahoshi. And I like this because in the novel series, there's like this moment of like awkwardness. Because it implies that Nanahoshi overheard what they were talking about. And it has something to do. And she's like, am I interrupting something? If I was just gonna be here to get some healing. I went by to Cliff, but Cliff is busy with Elise. So I had to come here. But if it's gonna cause more confusion, I'll come back another time. And she's coughing like crazy. I'm like, no, come in here. We'll help you out here. And yeah, try to use detoxification on her, and she keeps coughing more. Sylphie tilts her head in confusion while Nanahoshi continues to cough. Sylphie says, "What? This is kind of strange. My mana is... What is this?" Sylphie cocked her head to the other side and tried pressing her opposite hand to Nanahoshi's shoulder. In the meantime, Nanahoshi's coughing fit only worsened. Rudeus asked, "Is everything okay?" Nanahoshi slapped a hand over her mouth. There was a sound of liquid spattering. A clot of blood fell to the floor. Nanahoshi stared down silently at her hands. Dazed, her brain couldn't seem to digest what she was seeing. She turned her palms towards Rudeus, as though she thought that he would have the answers. Her skin was coated in blood. A second later, she collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Sylphie had killed her. Sylphie had murdered her. You're being awfully nice, that Nanahoshi. I'm gonna take her out. A killer. No, I'm joking. It is crazy though. What a crazy cliffhanger point for the anime only. So it's a rough one. And again, I don't want to allude to anything. Y'all see next week. I'm just giving you guys the info here. It was crazy. I think they pulled it off pretty damn well in the anime. That sense of like something's going wrong. For some reason they still don't like touching. I don't know why, but in the novel series, it's always been very clear that healing magic requires touching, and for some reason they never like having touching in the anime. I don't know if it's like presenting it in visual format, they just don't want to do it because it's lewd or something. I don't know. They've always avoided it ever since episode 1. Episode 1, when Zenith heals Rudeus, she just puts her hand over his head, doesn't touch, and for some reason it heals. It's a weird kind of thing they've stuck with the entire time, but anyway, that aside, it's a stupid rant. But my gosh, what a long video. What a long video. This is going to take forever to edit. But I hope you guys liked all this additional information for this episode. I feel like I didn't really do much like impressions of the episode, just more like, here's all this stuff that they did not technically adapt. A lot of the whole lesson stuff and a lot of this kind of inner dialogue of Rudeus being like afraid he screwed up their relationship with Sylphie and crap. Now Nanahoshi's going to cause it to happen again. But it's good stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. Hope you enjoyed my pretty much read through the novel series. It was pretty much a read of 3 chapters. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it informative. That's what my goal is here, is to inform people. I hope you guys appreciate it. If you did, hit the like button down below. There's also links in the description if you want to support the channel and support this content, or you become a member of the channel. I greatly appreciate it. But until next time, until the next skip content video, y'all take care.